I'm here today with another review video for you. So I'm here today to do a review on the Friday Night Knitting Club. I will pop a little picture up right here. So I rented this from my library as an ebook in the month of June, and I had no idea. I went in completely blind. I just saw the cover, to be honest, and I thought it was pretty, so I went ahead and rented it, and I listened to it on audiobook, and I did a good chunk of it all in one night. And I was cleaning the house, and I was going through it, and about halfway through I decided to look at reviews. And I'm gonna preface that my review might be a little easier on it than others are, because I did go on and look at reviews about halfway through the book, and a lot of people were talking about the fragmented style of writing, and they didn't like the flow of it. Well, with me listening to it as an audiobook, I didn't run into those issues, but just to give you a forewarning, if you are wanting to pick this up, that might be some issues. But if you want to pick up the audiobook, then you can avoid that. So let's just get into it. Friday Night Knitting Club is about a woman named Georgia who she got pregnant out of wedlock, and she opened up a shop in New York City. It's her yarn shop, and so she talks about how she met her group of friends there by an impromptu knitting club that she had inadvertently started. It wasn't her intention, and it just kind of all threw together. And it goes along the story with them sharing their story, like them all getting together with their yarn and talking about their lives, and it kind of like segues off of that, and it kind of does different side stories as well. So all of the different side stories include love after death, pregnancy, divorce, and then what happens when Dakota's father, which is George's daughter, comes back into the picture and wants to be in her life after all of these years. Dakota's about age of a teenager right now in the book, so it's like a weird timing for, like, mother and daughter are really close, and then he comes in and tries to be a part of it, and it's just a weird age, and it just creates a lot of complications. So yeah, that's the summary of the book. It's kind of rough, I know. I'm still learning how to do these review videos, so bear with me. I stumble over my words a lot, if you guys cannot tell. So I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it in the beginning, but after I started about halfway through, it just made the book feel like the entire book felt like it didn't have a lot of direction. So I felt like the entire book felt like a filler piece, and I didn't know what the point was halfway through, which is saying a lot, because if you're halfway through a book, especially an audiobook, when you've listened to like probably a good couple of hours in one sitting, and you still are like, where is this going with this? Like, it's so fragmented that, I mean, that's an issue, obviously. So that kind of docked in my rating. Another docking in my rating was that I love, like, the super cheesy, like in this book they have knitting as their club, so then in their knitting they connect it with life, so they give you knitting tips, and they like connect it with the life issues going on during it. A lot of that felt forced. I love the idea, I love like where she was trying to go with it. It did not, a lot of it was way too forced. I feel like she could have done it a lot better, but it just was like, here's a problem, I'm gonna make this sort of fit with knitting, and I'm just gonna throw it in there. Another issue that docked on my rating was that there was so much going on. Like, all of the different side characters, I loved that we got to delve into them, but the side characters didn't make a lot of sense. Like, one is having issues with her husband, one is like doing love after death, one is going through a divorce, one is going back to school, one is getting pregnant. Like, so many different areas that all of these women, which, I mean, it's kind of cool that all of these women are coming together to be friends with a mutual habit, but I just felt way too all over the place. Like, they all seemed super PC, and if they didn't have knitting, none of these people would be friends, because they all were such different personalities that they didn't mesh well, and they didn't connect very well. So after you initially meet them in this knitting group, they go off on their separate, like, you get little snippets. Like the main character, Georgia, you know a lot about her backstory, a lot about her family, a lot about her life, which is great. And I loved Dakota and Georgia and her dad and the shop. That's all great. But all of these different side characters, we didn't get a lot of background story. We didn't know what the motivation was behind their actions, so a lot of it didn't seem to connect, which made it really hard to connect myself to the characters, so that kind of docked it again. And I just wish that there was a little more connecting each character to the other characters, because once we split off from the original group of where they all met, they didn't really seem like they interacted much unless they were in that group, and it was very ingenuine. It was very on the surface, and this book is portraying that it's supposed to be this super tight-knit group knitting. That's unintended, but it just works out that way. But it just didn't work very well with that, so that's another reason why I docked it. So at this point, the book was sitting at like an okay, like it wasn't great, and I wanted to finish it, but I wasn't like super involved with the characters, was super into the world that they were building, and it was okay for me. But once at the very end, like, you have all these different like craziness things happening in this book, and at the very end, she decided to throw another curveball. And I'm just like, enough already. Like, I get that a lot of shit happens to people in their lives, but this is just too much. So, like, all of these things in this group, it was just too much for me. It wasn't as believable as it should have been. And then the very end was the big kicker that something happens, and I'm like, seriously? After literally everything that could have happened to these characters, and then this happens. And then, at the very, very end, everything was tied up with a bow. And that bothers me so much, because life does not get tied up with a bow, so I hate when books portray. They're like, oh, I'm getting to my page counter, I'm getting over this book, I'm done with it, I don't want to write it anymore, we're just gonna make it all okay. And I didn't like that, and especially with how, like, dramatic this book was, with how many issues was going on with all of these characters. The fact that at the end, everything's like, okay, everything is not okay, but everything is going to be okay. If you've read the book, you know what I mean. Things didn't work out for all of the characters, but they were all happy with it at the end. And I was like, what? Like, it was a very weird twist at the end that I felt was very unnecessary, and it didn't make a lot of sense how everything happened, especially at the end, and then everything was okay. Like, just tell it like it is. Life is messy. Don't make your book neat and clean, because it makes it very unreadable. So that's kind of where I landed with this. I did give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm very, very easy with my books. I don't harsh too much on books, because I know how hard it is for authors to, first of all, write this entire story and then put it out there for people to judge. So I try not to be too harsh, but this was not my cup of tea. I mean, it's a good, like, easier read, and it's entertaining, but it's not, like, engrossing, so it doesn't keep you wanting to come back. I had to push myself to finish this book, because I wanted to know at the very end how everything was going to be tied up, and I was left dissatisfied with it. So, yeah. If you guys have read this book, let me know what you guys think. Did you guys think that it ended on a perfect note, or did you like that it was ended like that, or were you more like me and wanted to have it end a little more messy and a little more real? I will say, though, in the end of, almost at all of my videos I talk about books, if you're going to leave spoilers, write spoilers so people don't get spoiled if they want to read this book. But if you guys have read this, I would love to talk to you down below, so comment down below, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.